I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Erica, for about 8 years now. We got married pretty young, both of us ambitious, trying to build a life together. I thought everything was solid, no major issues, no red flags. She was fiery, a bit bitchy at times, but I loved her for it. She had this sharp tongue, but underneath it all, she was ambitious, smart, and I thought faithful. Things started feeling off about 2 months ago. She began working late more often, claiming it was just a new project with her editor, Jason. She's a writer, so I initially just thought maybe her deadline was tight. But then I noticed she was unusually secretive. Her phone was always face down, and she'd get defensive if I tried to look at her screen unexpectedly. I didn't want to think she was cheating. I mean, who does? But something wasn't sitting right. One night I was rummaging through her purse after she went to bed, just to see if I could find anything suspicious. Foolish, I know, but I felt like I had to. I found. Her phone and her messages with Jason were hidden behind a bunch of deleted conversations. I didn't read every message, but I caught enough to see they were way more than just professional. They were flirty, intimate, crossing lines I never thought she'd cross. It was a punch in the stomach. My heart was pounding, and I felt this strange mixture of betrayal and disbelief. I tried to tell myself it was just sexual frustration, or maybe just some stupid, meaningless flirtation. But the way she lied about working late, about just editing her book, didn't add up anymore. I'd always thought she was dedicated to her craft, but this was different. It wasn't about her work, it was about her sneaking around, hiding something from me. When I confronted her the next day, she flipped. Called me paranoid, said I was imagining things, that Jason was just a friend helping her with her memoir, her life story, she kept calling it. But I wasn't born yesterday. I could hear the lies in her voice, see the way she avoided eye contact. She kept saying, "It's nothing, you're overreacting," and even threw in some insults about how I was insecure or jealous. That made me furious. How dare she call me insecure when she's out there cheating behind my back? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the secret messages, her evasive answers, the way she looked at me with that bitchy smirk when I asked her about Jason. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut so many times I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the betrayal of trust I thought we had. I started questioning everything. What else has she lied about? How long has this been going on? And the worst part, I still loved her. Even after everything, I didn't want to believe it was true. But I knew deep down I couldn't ignore what I'd found. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I mean, here I was, busting my ass trying to build a future, and she's out there screwing around with some guy who's supposed to be helping her with her book, her life story. She kept saying, like I was supposed to be proud of her writing her memoir while she was secretly cheating on me. It was like some sick joke. The betrayal cut deep, and I kept asking myself how many times she'd lied to me before I caught her. How long had this been going on? I was furious, but underneath that I just felt crushed. I decided I needed to see more. I went back into her phone trying to find more evidence. I figured if I could get a full picture, I'd know what I was dealing with. So I started scrolling through her messages, her emails, anything I could find. That's when I stumbled across the recordings she'd made for her editor. Little voice notes she'd thought were private, I guess. I'd been helping her edit her chapters, making notes, giving her feedback, and I'd recorded all of it. When I listened to those recordings again, I heard things I hadn't picked up on before. She'd been talking to Jason not just about her book, but about sex. Explicit stuff. Talking about how she wanted to try new things, how she wanted to feel alive, and how Jason made her feel like a woman again. I couldn't believe it. She was lying right to my face. I'd been sitting there while she vocalized her fantasies, her plans to meet him, while I thought she was just working on her memoir. And the worst part, she was lying to her own editor too. She told him she was single and wanted to keep their relationship professional, but I knew better now. Once I connected the dots, I couldn't hold back. I'd been so stupid to trust her, to think she was just working late, just editing her chapters. I'd been so naive, so blindsided. I'd given her my heart, my trust, and she'd been screwing around with Jason for who knows how long. That's when I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't just sit around pretending I didn't know what she'd been doing. I needed to hear her lie to my face to see if she had any remorse, or if she'd try to spin it all away. So I waited until she got back from her supposed meeting, and I was ready. I set up a camera in the living room, thinking maybe I'd catch her in the act if she tried to deny it. When she walked in, I stopped her cold. I pulled up her messages, her voice notes, and the recordings on my phone, and I laid everything out. Her face went white, and for a second I thought she was going to explode. She stammered, calling me crazy, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I knew better. I had all the proof I needed. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, throwing out all these lies, saying she never meant for it to go this far, that it was just sex, that Jason was just helping her with her memoir, that she was sorry, and that I was being a jealous idiot. She even had the nerve to call me insecure, like I was the problem here. I felt numb. How could she be so callous? How could she sit there and lie to my face after everything I'd done for her? I had trusted her, supported her dreams, and this was how she repaid me. With some guy behind my back talking about sex, about feeling alive. I couldn't believe the depth of her bitchiness, how she constantly lied just to cover her ass. After she finished her speech, I told her I needed a break. Told her I didn't want to see her, didn't want to hear her anymore. The betrayal hit me hard. I felt like I'd been punched repeatedly. I'd been so stupid to think she was faithful, to think we had something real. All those years, and she was just playing me. I felt sick, angry, sad, betrayed all at once. I didn't know what to feel, honestly. I just knew I couldn't stay with her after this. Not after she'd gone behind my back, lied, and played me for a fool. The days that followed were like living in a fog. I stayed home trying to process what I'd uncovered, but every time I thought about it, my stomach clenched. The betrayal was so raw, so fresh. It felt like I'd been kicked in the chest every time I remembered her lying, her sneering, her cheating. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see it coming, even though deep down I knew I was fooling myself. Still, that hope that maybe she'd come clean, that maybe I was wrong, kept me holding on for a little while longer. I started going through her stuff, trying to find some kind of closure, or maybe just trying to understand how she could be so damn cold. I found receipts for dinners she'd never mentioned, tickets to places we'd never gone, even a hotel reservation at some cheap inn nearby. She'd been sneaking around, lying to my face, and planning her next move as if she didn't give a damn how much she'd hurt me. Each new discovery was like another punch, but it also confirmed what I already knew. She was gone. She had checked out long before I even knew she was cheating. One night I decided I had to confront her for the last time. I wanted answers, plain and simple. I called her and told her to come over. When she arrived, she looked annoyed, like she'd been caught in traffic or something equally trivial. I could see the irritation in her eyes, but I was past caring. I was done being the fool. I pulled out all the evidence, the recordings, the messages, the receipts, and played her the voice notes I'd secretly recorded, the ones where she was talking about sex, about feeling alive, about Jason. Her face twisted into a sneer. She tried to deny everything, of course, said I was crazy, that the recordings were fake, that I was just paranoid. She threw out a bunch of insults, called me insecure, clingy, stupid. She even accused me of spying on her because I was jealous of Jason. I couldn't believe how brazen she was. She kept lying even as I had all the proof right there, like she thought she could talk her way out of it. I felt a mix of rage and sadness boiling inside me. I kept asking myself how someone who claimed to love me could be so damn heartless, so manipulative. When she saw I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore, she finally snapped. Started yelling, calling me a controlling asshole, saying I was just jealous because I couldn't satisfy her anymore. That one hurt more than anything, her calling me inadequate, like I wasn't enough. I realized then that her bitchiness wasn't just her personality. It was her way of justifying her actions, of trying to make me feel like I was the problem. But I knew better. I knew this was all her, her lying, her cheating, her trying to turn it around on me. As she stormed out that night, I sat there alone, feeling emptier than I ever had before. The house felt huge and cold, like a mausoleum for what we once had. I started questioning everything, whether I was the fool for trusting her, whether I was stupid for still loving her even after all the shit she pulled. But I also knew one thing: I couldn't stay with her. Not after she'd shown her true colors, not after she'd betrayed everything we built. I had to get out, to move on, even if it crushed me to think about starting over. I told myself I'd be okay, but honestly I wasn't sure I believed it yet. The worst part was realizing how much of my life I'd given her, how much I'd wanted to believe in us, only to find out she'd been lying all along. After she left that night, I sat alone in the dark, trying to piece together what my life had become. The house was silent except for the humming of the refrigerator and my own breathing. I kept replaying everything: the arguments, the lies, the recordings I'd made. It was like I'd been living in some nightmare where trust was just a word, and I was the fool believing in it. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of betrayal all tangled up inside me. I knew I couldn't just stay in that house, moping or obsessing over what I'd lost. I had to do something. I started making arrangements. I called a lawyer the next morning to get the ball rolling on a divorce. I wanted her out of my life, out of my house, and I knew I'd have to fight for everything I deserved: my property, my peace of mind, and maybe most of all, my dignity. I realized I'd been blind before, but I was done being naive. She'd shown her true face, and now I had to accept it. The pain was overwhelming at times, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had to face the fact that she was a liar, a cheater, and someone who didn't give a damn about our vows or the life we built. I started to see the whole picture: her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, her manipulation. It was like she'd been playing a role, pretending to be the wife I thought I knew, but instead she was just a user, a person who only cared about herself. That realization made me feel sick, but it also gave me strength. I had to move on. I threw myself into new routines, trying to keep busy. I started working out again, going for walks, and even took up some projects at work I'd been putting off. It was difficult every single day, facing the fact that the woman I loved had been cheating on me with someone she called her editor, someone she trusted to help her with her memoir. That word, memoir, kept ringing in my ears. She told me her life story was her passion, her purpose. But I saw now that it was just a cover-up, a way to hide her deceit. I couldn't help but think about how she lied so easily, how she kept telling me she was just working late, just editing her chapters. And then I found all those recordings of her talking about sex, about Jason, about feeling alive again. It was so clear now that her life story was just a mask, a way to cover up her betrayal. The anger started to shift into a kind of cold resolve. I realized I was better off without her, even if part of me still mourned what we'd lost. I kept reminding myself that I deserved someone who wouldn't lie and cheat behind my back. Some days, I'd catch myself wishing I could turn back the clock, fix what was broken, make her less bitchy, less manipulative. But deep down, I knew that was never going to happen. She'd shown her true colors, and I was just lucky enough to finally see them. It hurt to admit that, but I also felt a strange relief. Now I could start rebuilding, without her, without the lies, without the betrayal. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. I also started thinking about how I'd let her get away with so much. She'd lied so smoothly, dismissed my concerns, played the victim when I questioned her. That bitchiness, her constant spinning of stories, her manipulative attitude, I saw it all now. She never cared about us. She only cared about herself. That realization was brutal, but it was necessary. I knew I'd be better off eventually, even if right now, it just felt like I was trying to breathe through a storm. I had to remind myself that I was worth more than someone who could lie so easily, who could betray me so completely. So I kept going, step by step, trying to put the pieces back together. I started to see that this entire nightmare was a wake-up call. Maybe I'd been too trusting, too naive. Maybe I'd been blind to her bitchy side and her manipulative ways. But now I saw clearly, and I knew what I had to do: get out, heal, and find someone who wouldn't lie to me. Whether I was ready for that yet or not, I knew I'd survive this mess. And someday, I'd look back and see it as the moment I finally woke up. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal meetings, moving boxes, and trying to pick up the pieces of what was left of my life. I won't lie, some days I felt like I was drowning. The hurt was still fresh, the betrayal still fresh in my mind, and I kept going over every lie she'd told, every moment I missed, and every sign I hadn't seen. It was a brutal process, but I knew I had to keep going. I couldn't let her destroy what was left of my dignity, even if she tried to tear it apart with her lies and her bitchy attitude. I moved out of the house she'd shared with me. It was an ugly, sterile apartment, but it was mine. I chose to start fresh, to get away from the memories I couldn't bear anymore. Packing up her things was almost cathartic. I threw out her clothes, her books, all the little things that reminded me of her. I even got rid of some of her notes and her recordings. I figured if I was truly moving on, I didn't need to keep any piece of her around. It wasn't about hate, it was about reclaiming my life. The hardest part was dealing with the aftermath of her betrayal. I found out her editor was actually just some guy she met online, someone she'd been talking to long before I ever suspected. I wasn't surprised anymore. I'd seen her manipulative streak, her constant lying. That bitchy attitude she threw around when she was trying to cover her tracks. She'd always been good at spinning stories, at pretending to be the victim. But the truth was, she'd been cheating, lying, and playing me for a fool. Sometimes I'd sit alone and wonder how she could be so cold, so manipulative. She always acted like she was the victim, like I was the one causing problems. But I saw through her act now. Her bitchiness was just her armor, her way of deflecting, of making herself look innocent. And I'll admit, I was naive for a long time, thinking she was just stressed or busy with her book. Turns out she was just a different kind of liar, one who lied with her words, her actions, and her attitude. I realized I'd been holding on to a fantasy, that she was someone I could trust, someone who loved me. But she proved me wrong. She was capable of all this lying, manipulating, and cheating just to keep her secret affair going. And I couldn't believe I'd been blind to it all. The anger still burns, but it's starting to fade, replaced by a quiet resolve. I'm tired of being the victim of her bitchy manipulations. I want peace. I want someone who's honest with me, who respects me enough not to cheat behind my back or lie to my face. Looking back, I see now that her betrayal was a kind of gift, one I didn't want but one I needed. It forced me to wake up to see the truth about her and about myself. I was naive to think she was just a little bitchy, that her attitude was just part of her personality. Now I see her for what she really was, a manipulative, lying cheat who only cared about herself. And honestly, that's a lesson I won't forget. I'll never let anyone treat me like that again. So I'm starting over. It's not easy and some nights are still rough, but I know I'm better off without her. The pain will fade and someday I'll find someone who's honest, who respects me, and who won't lie or cheat. I just wish I'd seen her true face sooner. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that trust is fragile, and some people will lie, cheat, and manipulate just to keep their secrets. But I also learned that I can survive it, even if it hurts like hell in the process. And that in the end, I'm worth so much more than a bitchy, manipulative wife who lied her way out of our marriage. Now, as I sit here, reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize I've come a long way from that naive guy who trusted her blindly. Losing Erica was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through, but it also forced me to confront some ugly truths, not just about her, but about myself. I've learned that people can be incredibly good at hiding who they really are, especially when they're manipulative and bitchy as hell. Trusting blindly only makes you an easy target for betrayal. I've also learned that revenge, in a way, isn't about hurting her anymore. It's about reclaiming my life, my peace of mind, and my self-respect. I no longer let her betrayal define me. I've started to rebuild my confidence piece by piece, and I've realized I don't need someone who lies and cheats to feel whole. I deserve honesty, loyalty, and someone who respects me enough not to treat me like a fool. Honestly, I've become a lot more cynical about relationships, but I'm also more cautious. I don't trust easily anymore and I keep my guard up. But I also know that love, real love, isn't about blind trust or ignoring red flags. It's about mutual respect, honesty, and being real with each other. I don't think I'll ever fully forget what happened, but I will move on with a clearer sense of what I want and what I won't tolerate. If there's one thing I want to tell anyone reading this, don't ignore the signs. Don't be blind to the bitchiness or manipulation. Trust your gut. Because even the most seemingly confident, ambitious person can hide a darker side. And if you find yourself betrayed like I was, remember this: you're stronger than you think. You can survive heartbreak, deception, and betrayal, and you can come out the other side better. Not perfect, maybe, but stronger. And at the end of the day, that's what counts. So yeah, I'm still healing. I still feel angry sometimes, still angry at her for how she lied, cheated, and dismissed everything we had. But I also feel relieved. Relieved that I finally saw her true face, that I got out before she could do more damage. I'm moving forward now, one step at a time, and I'm not looking back. I know I'll find someone who's worth my trust, someone who won't lie, cheat, or manipulate. And that, for me, is the real victory.